Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Morning Modern Chat Network briefing. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the complex situation in Zimbabwe. It's a nation that seems to be telling two very different stories at once, one of official progress and another of a starkly different reality on the ground. First up, we're going to get into the intense political intrigue happening at the very highest levels. Think power struggles and succession battles. Then we'll shift our focus to a really disturbing trend: a rise in attacks on civil society and anyone who dares to dissent. And finally, we're going to try and make sense of the country's economic paradox, this massive contradiction between what the official reports say and what people are actually experiencing. Okay, so let's jump right in with the power and politics, because at the very top of Zimbabwe's government, there's this quiet but incredibly intense battle for succession going on. And, well, the cracks are really starting to show in some very public ways. The ruling party, ZANU PF, has had to come out and publicly shoot down rumors that Vice President Chiwenga is the guaranteed heir to President Mnangagwa. A spokesperson was incredibly blunt about it, saying that leadership is decided by a vote, not some kind of backroom deal. His exact words were, "This is not a papacy." You can't get much clearer than that. And then you have this just a bizarre incident. Right in the middle of the president's State of the Nation address, the whole brand new parliament building just goes dark. For a full 10 minutes, he had to keep giving his speech by torchlight. And get this, it wasn't a one-off. It was actually the second time a power cut happened right when the president was there. So you can imagine suspicion started flying immediately. Now, the official story was a tripped circuit breaker, but the reaction from the Speaker of Parliament tells a different story. He came out and threatened that the person responsible would regret the day of their existence. I mean, that kind of language, it really points to a deep-seated fear of sabotage and some serious internal power plays. And this internal political tension, it's not just staying behind closed doors. It really seems to be spilling out onto the streets, with what looks like a coordinated campaign of intimidation targeting anyone who dares to speak out against the establishment. Human rights groups are sounding the alarm here, talking about a real resurgence of political violence. And just look at this. In a single morning, a prominent think tank gets firebombed, and an activist's home is also attacked. The timing is absolutely critical. Both of these attacks happened right before a press conference was scheduled to challenge the president's potential bid for a third term. Now, in a show of solidarity, some very prominent opposition leaders showed up at the scene of the bombing. They were there to support the director of the trust, Ebo Mandaza, and, of course, to speak to the media. But just as they started talking, the whole situation escalated. The feared anti-riot police suddenly descended on the property, and you could just feel the tension skyrocket. What happened next was just chaos. The opposition leaders scrambled, jumped into their cars, and fled, leaving the director of the trust, Ebo Mandaza, standing there all alone, mid-sentence, to face the police. You can just imagine how shaken he must have been. This brings us to the economy, which, well, it might just be the most confusing part of Zimbabwe's entire story. You see, we have two completely different narratives playing out at the exact same time. One is about official stability, and the other is about widespread public stagnation. So, in his national address, President Mnangagwa painted a pretty rosy picture of success. He credited his government's policies for stabilizing the new currency and getting inflation under control. And you know, on paper, the numbers seem to back him up. Official data shows that annual inflation for the new ZiG currency took a massive dive in just 1 month, falling from nearly 83% all the way down to under 33%. But, and this is a big but, critics say this whole official story completely ignores the elephant in the room: corruption. They estimate that $4 billion are lost to graft every single year. Just think about that. That's money that could be funding collapsing hospitals, schools, and roads. So this is the core contradiction right here. The official story talks about a stable currency and rising GDP. But the critics' view points to a reality where over 80% of the population is living in poverty, and unemployment is just rampant. And if you want a stark symbol of this economic distress, look no further than the collapse of Telecel. This was once a giant in the telecom industry. It's now in corporate rescue, holding less than 2% of the market. I mean, that's a powerful example of the kind of challenges even major businesses are up against. Now, before we wrap things up, let's take a quick look at a few other major international headlines from around the same time, just to give us a bit of global context. We'll start in Jamaica, which was waking up to just absolute devastation after being hammered by Hurricane Melissa, the strongest storm in its modern history. Melissa was a catastrophic Category 5 storm. It left three-quarters of the entire island without power and literally split the city of Montego Bay in two with floodwaters. Just devastating. Elsewhere, Cameroon was grappling with a political crisis after a disputed election, and South Africa was facing a growing problem with students using their financial aid money for online gambling. So, all of this leaves us with a really fundamental question. What is the true state of Zimbabwe today? Is it the nation of stability and progress that its government describes? Or is it the nation of hardship and struggle that so many of its citizens seem to be experiencing? The answer to that question will absolutely define its future. Now, this is how we plan to earn an honest living, so if you found this briefing valuable, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. It helps us a great deal. Bye-bye, catch you on the next one.